I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it.
Ah, damn. Here we go again. Yes, you saw the title. I'm disappointed with how Helluva Boss is being handled. Episode 4 of Season 2 has just been released, and I'm not going to lie, the show is getting worse and worse from when my previous video came out. Oh, real quick, thanks for the support on my Helluva Boss video. It's my most viewed video now by a landslide. It got so much attention and the feedback was just amazing. Thank you all so much for it. And a lot of you had points that you wanted to discuss, and I'm glad that we were able to have mature discussions about them in the comments, rather than just pure salty sands, which I kinda expected. Listen, this is Helluva Boss, the fandom is rabid. It was quite pleasant. It was quite a pleasant surprise, so thanks you guys for seeing my points in the video and giving me your own. And I'm going to make a longer video going into more depth into why I think Helluva Boss is getting worse and why I'm worried for Hazbin Hotel. But for now, these are my initial thoughts on the new episode. First off, this episode still has the issue of introducing throwaway villains once again. As within the first few minutes, the episode we're introduced to Stella's brother. Wait, no, how silly of me. Sorry. I just messed up here. We're not introduced to him, he just suddenly appears.
Are you kidding me?
And therein lies the first issue with the writing of this episode. Stella's brother. He was built up to be a pretty important villain for the season, judging by the promotional art and the fact that his castle shot was the one used to advertise this episode. It's not that hard to see why he was going to be a big threat, especially after Moxie's dad was never given any kind of this treatment, and yet he was a pretty important villain throughout that episode and seems to be built up for later ones. So, with all that being said, what are they going to possibly do with his brother? Absolutely nothing. Once again, Stella's brother is such a nothing character. Hell, he's not even given a good introduction. And that is a crime in itself. Nothing special, no special framing, no special approaches. He just appears out of nowhere as if he's always existed. And yet you're trying to tell me he's the brains behind Stella's actions. That's not how you introduce a character, let alone a villain. Hell, Helluva Boss has introduced villains great previously, like Fizzarolli, Striker, and even Moxie's dad, all have their own special introductions that make them come across as they should have, threatening and imposing, with the right amount of edge. They tell us everything that we need to know about them. Intros are probably one of the most important things for a character because first impressions are everything. It shows us they're important, intimidating, and a deeper story is behind them. It's subtle, but it's effective. Some of the greatest villains ever have these introductions. They don't even need to be extreme. But the show just acts like we've already seen him before.
I've never met this man in my life.
He's my brother.
Why should we care about this when clearly you don't either? Considering he's not even a key point of the episode and only appears to set up future episodes, with him having incredibly little screen time, at this point, you could just say it's pretty much false advertising. To pull all this hype around this new character, only to completely bottle him in his very first appearance. You see, a character's introduction is one of their most important things, sets the tone and why we should care from the get-go. We could see this with villains like Aku in Samurai Jack, the Viking Chief in Primal, and even Thanos in Infinity War. Each get their own intros that are perfect for setting the scene. And here, it wouldn't have been that hard to do it. Perhaps a shot where he's obscured from the audience with frost falling from him, perhaps them revealing him when it's the perfect moment to keep us on our edge. But they fail to do the most basic thing to character making within the first minute of the episode. And just goes to show that if you can't get one character right, why are you making more? Another consistent issue with the series, there's just too many characters at this point. It's too much, and they have no personalities. There's no reason for us to care for them. It's as I said before, the show is more about style over substance. But while we're on the topic of villains, let's talk about the other villain in the room, Striker. Now, Stryker had such a great introduction into the show, with episode 5 giving the right amount of reveal and concealing the right amount of information while making him a legit threat, not some throwaway guy like Chaz. Which, I guarantee you, they reused this joke from an unfinished Chaz joke. I guarantee, because the Stryker from the previous episode wouldn't have done this at all. This feels more like a reused joke. And that's the main issue with him. He feels incredibly out of character. Now, this may be because, if you don't know, Stryker was originally voiced by Norman Reedus. You might know him from The Walking Dead as Daryl. I really thought he made the character who he is. His grumbly voice and subtle additions to his voice acting really sold the performance for me, with a perfect amount of threatening and enjoyment. However, he was recasted by Ed, and I'm just gonna say it, he just doesn't suit the role. Good on him for getting it after all. From all I've seen, he's a good actor, but I just don't think he suits Stryker. It feels like a miscast. He feels more like an imitation rather than a genuine character. His voice feels more generic and lacks the sense of genuine that Reedus brought to the role. It's like when you watch a movie, then check out the show that's made for it, and it's two completely different actors playing the same character. It's noticeable, and it really takes you out of it. I know Norman Reedus was too busy to reprise his role apparently, but then you just should have found someone who could bring the similar energy to his performance, but someone who just sounds like they're doing an impression, it just doesn't hit the same. It's kind of like the original Netflix movies of the Transformers, and they recast Optimus, but they still got someone who drew an impression of him. An impression doesn't equal quality. You may try to sound like him, but you don't act like him, and you don't make us believe you are him. Again, no hate to Ed, but he just wasn't a good choice for this role. There is so much wrong with this episode, and hell, I personally view it as one of the worst episodes of the entire show. The definition of style over substance. But to end this video off, I'm gonna say my other points in my next video, where I go more into depth with how I feel the show is going. However, the last major thing I want to talk about here with my initial reactions was the worst part of this episode. And that's a common theme with these episodes now, and that's pacing. This episode feels like 2 episodes crammed into one, with a much more serious and intense storyline contrasted with a stupid and ultimately meaningless storyline revolving around Luna getting her shot. Also as an excuse to play some pop songs, like why? Why are you trying to be I need a hero? This doesn't make sense. Also, despite the plot being about her, she doesn't even speak in the entire episode, which I kind of thought was kind of funny, not gonna lie, her own side story being about her getting a shot and she doesn't even speak once. I thought that was a clever use of not having the voice actress come back, but back on topic. This episode has a pathetic understanding of tone, with this scene where what should be a highly suspenseful and serious moment is cut up with a joke plot and acting like it fits perfectly, as if it's perfectly paralleled. It's such a bash to the senses that I got more frustrated than on edge, because they simply not have to do it, but they chose to do it for whatever reason, and they just missed the mark completely. And for a show that's already on its 2nd season, to have an episode where a complete fundamental mistake like this is done is just incredibly disappointing and just straight up bad. This show can't be defended by the fact it's a web series anymore. That magic has worn off now because there's just so many who do it better. So what's left is a messy writing mess that relies on its good visuals to cover up the fact it has nothing else under the surface. I am genuinely questioning the decisions they are making in the writer's room, because this stuff doesn't normally happen in any other show. At this point, I think that Vivziepop comes up with ideas she thinks are funny or cool, but in practice just aren't, and her team around her just let her do whatever she wants because it's successful. I'm not saying that's the case, but it most likely is from the product. Sometimes there can be too much of a good thing, and not every idea should be implemented. Like, when making my animations, as an example, I will always filter ideas through other people to see whether it fits or not, or whether or not it works, because creative freedom is nice, but sometimes you have to limit yourself so that what you're making is still good at the end of the day. After all, Jaws was a fantastic film, but that had like incredible limitations, and that made it even better because they got creative. Not every idea you have can and should be implemented. You gotta restrict yourself sometimes. These were just some of my initial thoughts from the episode. Again, I'm not making this to attack anyone specifically, but as a means to provide essential criticism, because that's what I feel this show lacks. People are too afraid to give simple criticism anymore because the fear of fans coming at them and just saying they hate it without even acknowledging the things that we're saying. It's rough, because I've seen other people giving genuine criticism and yet they just bashed with so much hate because it's VivziePop. You can enjoy something, but you can't ignore the obvious problems. If you want your thing to get better, you should critique it so that it leaves open possibilities for things to get better. And I will be making another video on this in future, going more into depth with the issues, such as the whole basic reason for the show to even exist is flawed. The whole reason for the show to even exist is flawed. But that's a topic for another day. What do I mean by it? You're gonna have to wait and see. Leave me your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of the episode? And I will see you all next time.